Hello, everybody. I wanted to give you a tour of our latest course. Welcome to Passport Venice. I'm super proud of all the work the team has done to work on this particular course. We have various types of courses while we're designing, and we have one that we like to call a Zen course, which is an environment that's just so wonderful and calming to be in and explore, rather than being focused on a new mechanic or a big storyline. The Venice course is meant to just be some place that evokes the warmth and charm and romance and magic of what it's like to visit this beautiful medieval Italian city on the water. So let's jump on in and I'll give you the tour. So here we are. We're at hole 1. You arrive here by gondola right up to the hole. And one of the things I'd like to say about designing this particular course, especially when it comes to designing something that's based upon an existing place, is that we weren't necessarily trying to recreate it. We weren't trying to sort of grab a Google Street View or Google Earth piece of Venice. But we wanted to see if we could capture it in a way that gave you the feeling of what you might imagine it would be like to be visiting Venice, but also for anybody who's actually been, as a way for them to feel like they're kind of returning in a little bit of a way. So this first location where I've just dropped into is what we would call our establishing shot, which is it needs to sort of fulfill your ideas of what you think it would be like to arrive in Venice. And one of the most important elements is up there you'll see the clock tower. There are many clock towers in Venice. That isn't any one in particular, but it is absolutely the style of the clock tower you would see. Every quarter of the hour, it will go off. You'll actually hear the bells. You'll probably hear them as we're walking around. But we also wanted to fill the environment with the kinds of things you would see in a medieval city, but a medieval city in the 21st century. So you have all of the architectural elements that you would expect to see, but also you have modern things like these up in the corner. You'll see there's sort of internet boxes and electrical wires and things that have been applied to the structures that the reality is these walls are sometimes 2 to 3 feet thick. So it's really hard to put plumbing through them or put wiring in them. So we wanted to make sure that those elements that are part of the experience of being in Venice are also represented. You'll also see elements like these brackets that are holding the walls together. Those are just to make sure that the masonry, it stays in place in case there's an earthquake or some shifting. And also you'll see these little brackets that are on either side of the windows. Those are called shutter dogs, or they're brackets that hold open the shutters when they're open, and then they can be swiveled to release the shutter so you can close it at night or when the weather's bad. So let's wander around through this city, and I'd like to talk about the choices we've made as we've laid this out. Our courses tend to be kind of intimate and tight, but we wanted you to feel like everything that you're seeing, you're getting to see from multiple vantage points. So we're going to have all the various canals going off into the distance that you would expect, but you're also going to be able to get up and change your height so you can visually look back on areas that you've been, and you're going to see that as a theme as we move through the space. Every bit of detail is there, and I have to do a shout out to Tad Catalano. He's our sort of architectural model builder, and he spent weeks and weeks in here researching the window types and the doors and the masonry and the structures so that he could be as authentic as possible when it came to recreating and reproducing what it feels like to be in Venice. And there's a lot of these little sort of vignette moments where you can find different corners of the city as you're moving through it. We also have sort of paths through parts of the streets that you don't play the game through that allow you to explore as you're making your way through our little course. And we also, of course, have a gondola that is making a circuit through all the canals that you can actually just sit and enjoy riding through the various canals and streets as you're making your way through Venice. We also try to bring you inside and outside, weaving in and out of the structures. This is sort of a low poly interpretation of a quintessential sort of Maiolica ceramic studio that you might go through, where you would see ceramics being made and painted, but also where you could purchase items. All of these structures have windows that look back out onto the canals in a very, very Venice way. And as we turn corners, we also want to give you opportunities to have new vistas and new ways in which to see the same space. So this wonderful colonnade here is a great view in this direction, but also to the left, you've got that little gated garden that you saw earlier down that little alleyway with the butterflies and the flowers. We also try in our layouts to give you glimpses of places you're going to go to in the future. And we're actually fairly early on, we're giving you a glimpse of the 18th hole, the piazza where the final hole is located, just so you can see it, the architecture framed by the foreground elements. This is very much what it's like to go through an Italian city where you're constantly turning a corner and being surprised by what is visible that you hadn't seen before. And just moving forward here just a teeny bit, you can see once again there's that clock tower that I pointed out earlier. It's one of those things that's going to remind you of where you are in space, because it's constantly going to reappear as you're moving through the environments. One of the things that's true about Venice is there's not a lot of room on the streets for trees. So there aren't a lot of trees in Venice in the public places. Trees and plants tend to happen in private places. So in a private little courtyards, up on the balconies, you'll see lots of plants, you'll see lots of vines. And so we wanted to give that feeling that you knew you were in a sort of a private environment when you started to see a lot more greenery. This area is actually inspired by a museum in Boston, which recreates a sort of little private villa that is in the style of the Venetian architecture, but is very sort of quintessential private courtyard that you would see, which gives you multiple views back into the streets. So making our way from this court, we're going to head into an artist studio. And the ceilings tend to be medieval and tall with elaborate paneled wood ceilings. In here, you've got sort of low poly interpretations of various bits of art being created, a lot representing some of the details you'll see as you're moving through the course. And also, we're starting again to get up above the areas we were before. So down here, you can see Hole 1's area and the gondola as it's arriving and then departing. And then in this direction, you move your way past these windows. One of the things that is also very Venetian is this sort of the glass separation between inside and outside. It feels as much as like the city itself is part of your interior space because of these incredible windows that look out down other canals and down into the marketplace. So wherever possible, we're trying to give you many, many ways to experience these places from many vantage points. So over here, we're going across an interior bridge that connects these two private spaces. Once again, you're getting a view down into that first arrival area, but you're also getting a glimpse over here to an area you haven't been to yet, with their views down the canal and down to the covered marketplace below. So we'll get to that in a moment. There's also very large, lush private spaces, so we wanted to make sure that you were feeling like you were getting an opportunity to go into someone's private home. But once again, you see that almost like paintings on the walls, these windows act as sort of a window out into the city itself, which is this work of art. Oh, you can hear, there goes the clock tower. Once again, you can see it from here at the quarter hour. We'll move through this private space. And our style, basically, because we're a VR product that runs on a tetherless headset, has to be low poly, but we try to get in a huge amount of ambiance and flavor and detail with the design choices we make. Got a sleeping cat here on the balcony overlooking hole 1, and we've got lots of little bits of business that is sprinkled about that suggest that humans are here and actually occupy this place. Huge chops to Emma Mercado, who is one of our marvelous modelers, art directors, and designers. She often comes in and really breathes life into the details in an environment. In fact, over here down below is the little gelateria. That's all her work. And then everywhere that you see some sense of life, some feeling as though people are inhabiting the spaces, you can really thank Emma for all of those marvelous details. All of the streets and canals have names. They're in Italian, and they all reference golf. They're not actually places that exist in Italy. Work our way down. This light fixture here that's hanging between the two buildings is actually based upon a light fixture that's on one of the streets leading up to the Rialto Bridge in Venice. You can see that they don't have a lot of furniture and stuff on the streets themselves, with the exception of maybe a restaurant sort of spilling out into the street. The streets are so narrow, there's not a lot of space for details or object or furniture. So Emma's been really clever about the use of just enough plants, just enough objects to make it feel like it's inhabited, so it doesn't necessarily feel like sort of hermetically sealed, fake interpretation of the place. Recreating something as vibrant and as old as an Italian city is tough, because there is so much texture and so much history that's visible. It's very tempting to do sort of a plastic version, and that was not what we wanted to do. But at the same time, we also didn't want to try to make a photorealistic version of it. We wanted to see if we could capture the feeling of what it's like to be here. Another detail here is that all the buildings are made of stone, so a lot of the modern construction work that's happening is happening with elements in the street that are brought in and out of the structures. So the sound of construction work is often something you hear when you're visiting a European city. So more meandering, you get these wonderful views down other canals where you can see bridges off in the distance, and then back in this direction back to the main piazza, and you can see the artist's loft over here. These ancient covered mercados, these wonderful open marketplaces, are just a part of Italian life. This is where you would come to buy just that piece of fish or that bread or some vegetables or fruit that you're going to have for that day's meal. It's central to the experience of living in a medieval Italian city. We weave our way over here. There's lots of little details like the little edging with the spikes on it. Some shops will have those. They're just meant to keep people from lingering and sort of sitting around in front of it. They love tourists, but they also love them not to be all sort of parked in front of their church or their establishment. We've got another wonderful view down one of the canals, and we've got these sort of quintessential locks on bridges, and many of the initials that are carved into each of these locks are couples that are working at Mighty Coconut, working on the walkabout courses. Another view back toward hole 1, and we're going to dive down here in through these wonderful large sort of carriage doors and into the cafe. And like many restaurants and cafes, they take up spaces that were potentially used for other uses. They can be very intimate, and like this particular cafe basically just has espresso drinks and then maybe a cornetto or a cannoli, and just wonderful seating that looks out into the more intimate canals that are neighboring it. And we turn the corner, and there's another sort of marketplace square that has a vaulted ceiling. You've got some night lights for nighttime, and then also the sort of quintessential artist table where they've depicted parts of the city in their artwork for tourists to buy. We've got a stage being set up, and we've got a wonderful mural mosaic that was designed by our graphics art director, Zach Alexander, who does a lot of the color and all of the graphic choices that are made in our game. Here's the the large church for the area. And down here, you'll actually see a view into another piazza. That's the piazza with where the tower's base is located. And you'll see there's a central cistern, which is where the water's collected for a neighborhood, is right there in the center of their little private piazza. Looking back, you'll see there is an open marketplace with temporary stalls. This one's selling some antiques. Looks like it's being set up. And we're looking back over to the colonnade we went through earlier. There's a little setup of a chess game. Sort of old Italian men sitting around drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes, and playing cards or chess is sort of staple to an Italian city. And then we turn and we're in the sort of finale area, which is this piazza that is neighboring this wonderful church facade with lions that were built by Emma but were designed by Zach, and it's the same line we're seeing over in the fresco over here in the vaulted market area. Over here we've also got a pizzeria, complete with a painting portrait of the Italian family that has been running it for generations, and available margarita pizzas, and you can actually see the pizza oven working in the background. And another detail I really wanted to make sure that we were able to have is some sense of being adjacent to the Grand Canal, which is the larger body of water that circles the city that you can traverse on the boats that move around the city, sort of like floating buses. But having had the opportunity to go to Venice and sit and eat strawberries along the Grand Canal, this really does help capture the feeling of being here and sort of the magic of this amazing city. So whether or not you've always wished to come to Venice or you've been here, I'm hoping this captures the feeling of being in the city without necessarily sort of slavishly recreating photorealistic version of it. And anybody who hasn't been there, I'm hoping it sort of rekindles memories that they've had, because every choice we made was sort of a loving tribute to what it feels like to have the honor to visit a city like this and be a part of its history and take a little of it home with us, inside of us. So thanks for coming along and having a look. Like I said, I'm very proud of the work we've done here. I hope you've liked the tour. And I hope if you have a headset and you get an opportunity to come in here, certainly to play a round of miniature golf. But if you have an opportunity to go multiplayer and be here with friends, then just hang out in here. Hey, maybe we'll just jump on this gondola here and have a seat. And one of the best things to do when you're in one of these courses is just sit back on one of our sort of floating conveyances and just have a nice conversation with your friends and talk about anything and just enjoy the design environments and maybe hopefully take you away to what it might feel like to be visiting this beautiful city in northern Italy. So thank you for your time. Hope you like the tour, and do check out Passport Venice sometime soon, because I think you'll be happy you did. Thanks a lot. Bye.